What I think a lot of people miss in their walk today is the sheer and utter priceless value of fear of Hashem. David HaMelech celebrated his Yirat Hashem when he said, "Serve Hashem with fear and rejoice with trembling," according to Psalm 211, which is a strange statement to make when most people stop and think about it. But in this last lowly generation, there is no motivator in serving Hashem greater than fear. It causes swift and acute mindful action, and when a person is in fear, all his senses are alight, and he watches vigilantly over the situation at hand. It is precisely the opposite when a sinner is showered with assurance, praise, and comforting words. There is no greater destruction than to tell a person who is enmeshed in sin that he is okay and doesn't need to change. You've just destroyed any motivation that sinful person may have had to turn from his wicked ways. Indeed, Hashem's formal appearance at Mount Sinai was anything but a warm and pleasant event. So too, Moshe Rabbeinu's last speech to the nation of Israel was laden with rebukes and graphic warnings. So much so that I defy anybody to read through the 72 curses in Deuteronomy 28:15 through 68 and still dispute what I'm getting at here. In short, if you are not learning from a rabbi who is at least challenging you and pushing you, and when required every now and then giving you the odd warning, you will not get much real progress. A convert to Judaism said in regard to the subject of this latest installment, "I listened to this rabbi, but I started to feel fear, guilt, shame, and I felt like continuing listening would be emotionally harmful to me." A good rabbi will actually make his listeners feel these very things. It's called conviction, and if you aren't getting a good dose of conviction in a lecture, then you aren't going anywhere good. The only harm that will come to you is to feel none of these things and to convince yourself that you are okay and not that bad. The reality is that not only are most people that bad, but they are even worse than they think, and if rabbis don't stop pussyfooting around, there will be nobody left on earth to greet the Mashiach. Join me as we look into the life and teaching of Rabbi Yaron Reuven. Born in Israel and known for his groundbreaking Keruv work, Rabbi Yaron Reuven has also drawn considerable controversy, but we'll get into that shortly. He made his fortune on Wall Street before leaving the business world to become a full-time rabbi, focusing on spreading the truth of the Torah through methods like scientific proofs and personal narrative. His teachings have been met with both support and criticism, with some listeners finding his approach emotionally harmful or off-putting, while others praise his focus on spiritual growth and practicality. Whatever your views on this man, one thing remains factually irrefutable, which is his vast output. Together with his rabbi, he has published and written books, produced movies, quality lectures, and goes places on subjects that most rabbis fear to tread, and distributes resources, always has a number of fundraising projects for charity happening around the clock, and floods all popular social media platforms with all kinds of content from 30-second videos to 9 and 10-hour plus lectures, and everything in between. He has his own app and a groundbreaking AI rabbi service that can literally answer any question with myriads of videos and sources, and he just keeps going year after year. He is literally the Orthodox Jewish equivalent of a Terminator. In Rav Reuven's own words, his life didn't start out religious. His world started out as Olam HaSheker, which means the world of lies, a world that when the whole time you're in it, you think it's the truth. He was born in Netanya, Israel, and migrated to the United States as a young boy and went from working as a newspaper boy to a shoe store salesman and a short stint in an electronics store, and then eventually became a Wall Street multi-millionaire at the age of 23. He was featured on CNBC, Bloomberg, and the Chinese NDTV due to his success. During his Wall Street ascent, he developed an interest in gambling, even going to Las Vegas and playing in tournaments on Shabbat with some of the best players in the world at the time. All this hit a brick wall at age 26, when after some elective surgery, complications arose that caused him to go through 7 years of physical hell. From November 18, 2006, after the surgery, everything below his neck took a downward spiral. For the first 62 days after the surgery, he was bedridden, and after this he went back to work using a cane to walk and taking a cocktail of over 20 different prescription drugs. He then got an infection in his leg, which nearly took his life. He was released 2 weeks later, but still experienced extreme pain, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on doctors to find the cure or at least a diagnosis. On top of all this, the government began to audit his business, at one time actioning 6 simultaneous audits, which was unheard of for even the biggest firms in the country at the time. Money slowly dwindled and thoughts of suicide came to him. One day his mother came to visit him and could see that he was losing the fight physically, mentally and spiritually, and it was quite obvious that he didn't have much time left for this world. In a last-ditch effort, his mum pulled out a notebook full of names of rabbis from all over the world and she started calling them. For almost 2 hours she called rabbis, but no one was answering. Finally, she reached a number in Israel and a woman answered the phone. His mum asked for a certain rabbi, but the lady said no such rabbi is at that number. Reuven's mum became hysterical. As she was crying, the woman on the other end recognized who it was. She called her by her name. Stunned, Reuven's mum asked the woman how she knew her name. As it turned out, she had somehow managed to call her niece, who she had never spoken to before, over the phone. The niece asked why she was crying, and his mum related the story. The niece said, "Why don't you talk to my brother Rabbi Ephraim?" Now, as it turned out, Rabbi Ephraim, though still being in his 20s at the time, was a very accomplished rabbi. Having finished the Shas 4 times before he was 20, that is a 72-volume set of encyclopedic-sized volumes of Torah Halakha, known in the Jewish world as the Talmud, and he had written and published 6 books before the age of 26. A few days later, Reuven was edging closer and closer to the edge, and his mum could very much see that this was going to be the end. So in a last-ditch effort, she convinced her son to receive a call from his cousin. The first conversation was an hour and a half as Reuven asked hundreds of questions and to his surprise received hundreds of answers accompanied by sources. These phone conversations became more regular, happening every Thursday and lasting a lot longer, with some lasting up to 7 hours. During that time, Yaron Reuven became alive again. The pain was still there, but it was no longer relevant. As the weeks turned into months, Reuven continued to learn and do tshuva. This wasn't an easy time, but he had the strength now that he had thought he'd lost. Added to this, his faithful wife, who stood by his side all the time when he was sick, wasn't Jewish. So over the next few months, they would watch Torah lectures together to see if his wife would be interested in converting. This became a back and forth experience, as Reuven's wife still had an interest in Christianity, but after much tears and around-the-clock reading of Psalms, she eventually came around and converted. He went on to study at a private yeshiva, possibly Yosed HaTorah Yeshiva in Yerushalayim, and received rabbinical ordination as a rabbi from Kollel Ashel Avraham under the Honorable Rav Yaakov David Spivak in 2018. During Rabbi Reuven's ordination ceremony, he emphasized the importance of an ish emet, that is a man of truth, and the responsibility that comes with being a rabbi. He used the story of Noah and the lion that injured him on the ark to illustrate that a rabbi must be willing to be disliked for speaking the truth, even if it means being unpopular. He stressed that rabbis have a special responsibility in a generation that is increasingly turning away from Hashem. He explains that the rabbis need to be lions for Hashem, standing strong even when it is difficult. He also highlighted the importance of unity and collaboration among rabbis in order to bring people back to Hashem. Unfortunately, there is a vast deficiency within rabbinic circles in producing teachings that are directly arrayed at the heart of the enemy's attack. The irresponsible use of the internet and social media is fast-tracking mankind into oblivion, and much of Judaism is turning a blind eye to the weak points in the Jewish world. Any rabbis who put themselves out in the front line and have the courage to rebuke are always attacked, and few who experience this stay the course. But Rabbi Reuven is an exception to this rule, and a shining example of a rabbi that's actually fighting for the spiritual soul of Yisrael. The amount of output that this rabbi produces over the web and through Kiruv is staggering, considering the flack that he gets for standing up for the truth. Death threats, lawsuits, media attacks, to name a few. The cold hard fact is that a hard rebuke is often shunned because it invites reprisal, and most people's backyards aren't clean enough to launch into it seriously, but we need it, and we need it bad. Okay, so let's look at some of Rabbi Reuven's most divisive teachings. Around 2019, he embarked on a campaign denouncing the wearing of wigs by Jewish women in the Orthodox world, stating that even the so-called kosher wig industry is questionable, citing that kosher wigs and hair extensions labelled as European are still mostly coming from Indian temple sacrifices, with the merchants just shipping the hair to Europe and relabelling it for sale to other markets. The next teaching concerns the cash advance industry, with many organisations being Jewish-owned, charging predatory interest and literally causing businesses already on hard times to be completely destroyed. He gives a strong warning that the cash advance business is bringing judgment on Am Yisrael. Many Torah sources list the dangers of the wicked cash advance business, including the Takanah enacted by Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, that forbid lending money with interest to both Jews and Gentiles, with the rulings of many Gedolim and Talmudei Chachamim, that is Torah scholars, that say lending to anyone is never permitted at cash advance interest rates.
So history has shown us that this business is a disaster for society, for people, for the Jewish people. Another thing that you'll see in the tshuva is what different chachamim have said throughout history about this industry of high interest lending. It says this not only brings anti-Semitism, but this brings Chilul Hashem, and worst of it all, a person that lends money with high interest to the goyim is considered a rodef. What's a rodef? A rodef is someone that's trying to kill you. And if someone is trying to kill you, you're allowed to kill them. Why is somebody that's in the business called a rodef, according to some chachamim? Because he's bringing so much hatred to the nation that it's as if he's trying to kill the nation. And one of the common sense ways that the Chachamim have explained of why this is so bad, he said, if you are living in America, in England, in Australia, obviously that's not your home. It's the Goyim's home. It's the American home. It's the Australian's home. It's the English home. It's the French home. And they're allowing you to live among them, which obviously you owe them a gratitude for allowing you to live in peace in their country, in their land. So when you, as a Jew, that is supposed to say thank you to the non-Jew for allowing you to live in peace in their country, instead of saying thank you, are cheating them in business or giving them a product that is predatory, you are an ungrateful, horrible person. And in fact, Rashi wrote, you are strengthening Amalek with every transaction. Instead of saying thank you to the Gentile that is allowing you to live in peace in their country, you are taking advantage of them. And you know, if you've been in the business for at least a year, you know what the history of your customers are, without even reading the book. How do you know? Simple. Look at what happened to your customer after a year. You have, let's say, 10 customers you got in the first month, and then you continue getting more customers each month. Do yourself the service and look at what happened to the lives and business of those 10 customers on the average after a year. And every single broker in that business that I've spoken to that was honest told me, Rabbi, everything you're saying is 100% right. The average person loses, and not only loses a lot as a result of that. But where else am I going to make $100,000 a month? And the answer they all get is, I don't care where you're going to make $100,000 a month. And in fact, I don't think you're going to make $100,000 a month in a different business. At least not right away. But that doesn't matter. You're ruining people's lives. Just because you want to make money doesn't mean you're allowed to be a hitman.
On one occasion, Rabbi Reuven publicly condemned a so-called Orthodox synagogue for hosting a Christian missionary and set out on a campaign to try and block the event, which led to a personal visit to his home by local police after responding to a false accusation of death threats. In more recent times, Rabbi Reuven went to Israel for the high holidays in September and early October of 2023, and after the massacre on October 7, there he stayed for the initial weeks, posting videos nearly every day covering the beginning of the war from its spiritual perspective. He was the only one to have the guts to quote that verse in Psalm 137, of which he took heavy fire, and he continued to aggressively condemn Hamas and at the same time call his people to tshuva for the many escalating sins of his nation that brought on the judgment. Now, I am acutely aware that Rabbi Reuven's style isn't everybody's cup of tea. He is outspoken, learned, a great speaker, extremely confident, and he pulls no punches. Be that as it may, there are thousands of Jews that he has led back to the Torah through his, at times, bucket of cold water over the head approach, which is an approach that I personally like. There are those out there that have been so soaked in sin that such an approach is at times the only way to call them back to life. And if that's not you, there are plenty of other good rabbis out there that take a much softer approach, but him not being your cup of tea is not an invitation to launch into Lashon Hara or Motzi Shemra. Every accusation that I've come across, and I mean every accusation of him, after listening to the criticized isolated statement, when viewed in full context, is 100% on point with what the Torah and many of the top Jewish sages have said throughout history. If you are not familiar with him, I would recommend watching a few lectures and see if he is a good fit for you. Remember, there are certain qualities that embody a good rabbi. Number one, they have to have Yirat Shamayim, that is fear of heaven. And number two, they have to not care about popular opinion and have no desire to make a name for themselves or build an empire. Rather, they should be solely focused on doing the will of Hashem. Number three, they have to only be concerned with the emet, that is the truth. And number four, they have to have legitimate credentials, meaning they have to have Orthodox Jewish qualification and, if possible, approved by the chief rabbinate of Israel. And number five, they have to speak without fear of offending listeners and speak strongly. The stricter, the better. And number six, they should be effective, meaning that they have to have tangible runs on the board in terms of outreach success and with regular charity works, growing and mentoring people and building yeshivot, that is houses of study. And number seven, they have comprehensive teaching spanning halakha, musar, midot, shimurat halashon, shimurat anayim, and shimurat habrit, and good hashkafa, that is a good outlook and good philosophy. And number eight, they revere and respect the Jewish sages. Rabbi Reuven has, to a greater or lesser extent, all of these very qualities. Thank you so much for watching, and bye for now.